My new paints have come. So we have Titanium White, Cadmium Red Hue, Cadmium Yellow Medium Hue, Burnt Umber, Cerulean Blue Hue, and Ultramarine. We're going to work on a paint chart. I've made a little plan of what I'm going to do, and I've got a nice big A3 piece of paper that I can use. So we need to divide this up. 6 down here, 8 across here. But I want each slot to have at least 3 little squares, little rectangles, so I can increase the concentration of each colour. So here we go. I can't describe what I'm doing as I work, so here's a voiceover. I start with measuring out a column for the paint names and a row for the paint names. How much space you allow will totally depend on how many colours you're doing. Because I've got 6 hues, including white, I divide up the column on the left into 6 slots of 4 centimetres each, and at the top I split up the row evenly into 8 slots of about 4.75 centimetres each. Each box will be divided up into 4 1 centimetre rows to allow for different amounts of each colour. I also want to see what they're like at different concentrations of 3 colours, which is why I've got 3 extra columns. I label the boxes on the first column, then the row at the top with the colour names and the mixes. The first step is to fill in the pure colours from the tube. So I squeeze out some of each of the colours onto my palette, and the squares where the colours meet get the pure hue. So for example, where the cadmium red at the top meets with the cadmium red on the left is the square for the pure colour straight out of the tube. I block that in for each of the colours first. Next comes the laborious task of tinting each of the hues. I let the colours at the top lead, so I start with cadmium red again and add a tiny bit of the first colour of the left, which is titanium white. I mix it well, then apply it with my flat brush. I clean both the palette and the brush very well between each and every box so the colours are as accurate as possible. I repeat the process with each of the hues, adding progressively more white until I get to the lightest tint of the colour. Then I mix them with cadmium red, and then with the cerulean blue hue. I don't work very systematically, so hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. I skipped onto the 3 colour variant, which was cadmium red plus cerulean blue plus cadmium yellow. I started with a fairly even split of each of the colours for the first row. Then I added a bit more of the cad yellow for the 4th row, then back to the 3rd row for a version with extra cerulean, and finally to the 2nd row for the extra cadmium red. For the boxes underneath, I added progressively more white, and I wish I'd remembered that that's what I'd done for the rest of the chart. Ideally, you want to do one version and stick to it. I'll label these at the end to make sure I know in future why they're different from the rest of the chart. Halfway through, I changed my method and decided rather than repeating the colour mixes in the bottom left corner of the chart, I'd make tints of the mixes at the top. As you might have noticed, the cadmium red and cerulean blue has 2 boxes that are basically the same but inverted, because it's the same mix but back to front. So instead of repeating them, I drew a line under each of the pure hues, and beneath that line is a version of the pure mixes but with increasing amounts of white. To speed things up, I did them as I went along. Hopefully this is making sense as you watch the video. I had to wash my palette a few times as I ran out of space, and I noticed that these new paints are staining the palette way more than the budget paints did. So here's the line to separate the pure colour mixes to those with white added in. And that's this painting chart complete. It took a long time, but it should speed up my colour mixing in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.